All right, it is time to head into the office. Had a bit of a rough start this morning. I woke up, I had to do a call for 6:30 a.m., so I woke up at 6, and then just felt like my voice was kind of gone. So it kind of felt like a cold was coming on, kind of felt like my voice was going. And like while I was taking this call and talking, I just remember feeling like I don't know how much I can talk here. And it wasn't recorded or anything. It was just like an informational session, so it was fine. But the issue is that at 7 o'clock I was supposed to live stream. We wrapped up that call a little bit early, which is surprising. Calls always go over, but wrapped it up a little early. And then my phone is playing YouTube because it's a great thing to do for Bluetooth. Thank you. I wrapped up that call early and then felt like I don't think I can do this live stream, and figured, okay, like maybe it's best I get to bed and just try to rest. And now I feel like I'm not losing my voice, which is nice. Still kind of feel like I might have a bit of a cold coming on. I'm not really sure. Like I feel fine, but something feels a little off. So I'm not sure. I am going to the office because I'm not totally convinced it's a cold. I don't know. But anyway, this morning was kind of crap because of that. So I didn't really get much of anything done. I had that call. It went back for a bit of a nap. Voice seemed to kind of recover, I guess. And this morning, what I focused on was and this is what I'm going to be talking about in this video, is kind of not reworking auth in BrandGhost. I am kind of refactoring some of the patterns, and I want to be able to talk about this particular pattern and how kind of like building with a plugin system gives me this opportunity to see the pattern many times, to have examples of how to massage it, if you will, and kind of come up with a good pattern and refine it. So before I jump into that, yesterday Ryan Murphy and I did release our behavioral interview course, so we're super excited about that. This morning on YouTube, I saw that Nick Chaps has actually included the advertisement for it, which is awesome. So it's always fun to watch a video and then kind of see, and he's a huge YouTuber, right? He's got like over 300,000 subscribers. See your face kind of pop up there, hear your name, so it's cool. We launched our course. We're very proud of it. When I was live streaming last night, I was talking about some of the concepts from that course. So we think it's going to be super helpful for people. It is all about behavioral interviews, not coding or system design interviews. So that is a separate conversation. This is really the behavioral part, and in particular, getting our perspective as managers. So at the end of the day, like one of the big takeaways for that course that I want people to have is like, you want to be thinking about when someone asks you a question in an interview, like a behavioral interview, what is the goal of their question? Not just like, oh, they want to hear me talk about projects. They're looking for something. This person just pulled out in front of me and like they were asking for trouble because they were not going fast enough, but we survived. So anyway, that course is out. We are meeting tomorrow morning, bright and early for me. Actually, it's not. We're moving it a little bit, but we're going to be planning kind of going through the curriculum for our next course, and we'll start filming next week, which is going to be cool. I'm getting my hair cut completely off on Thursday, so this guy's going to be bald by choice and not by not letting the nature part kind of kick in more than it already is. So I wanted to make sure that I could do that between courses and not be filming a course and part way through you're like, wow, this guy is bald all of a sudden. Like must have been painful to film it or something. Okay, but that's what's going on. So this morning was working on this part of code in BrandGhost, and I always build things in plugins, so it's not a surprise. But one of the things that we have in our system that lends itself very well to plugins is the ability to post to different social media platforms. So each platform that you can post to is like a plugin, but every platform also needs to have its own type of authentication. So in order for us to do that, we have this is going to be really tricky to explain, by the way, without like drawing it or showing code, so I'm going to try my best. But we have a code path that basically will write records for authentication. So there's like it's kind of like recording like a user ID, if you will. So we have a user ID and we have a social account identifier, and this is writing the association for those things. That's the easiest way to put it. Track when it happened, kind of thing. And we have a table for that. Now, OAuth, if you haven't worked with OAuth, it's a pretty crappy thing to work with, despite it being a standard. Everyone seems to do OAuth a little bit differently, and it makes it ridiculous to work with, because it's like, if you went into it assuming there was no standard, I think it would feel better. But given that you know it's supposed to be standardized, and then you're seeing like how everyone does it slightly different, it's painful. So anyway, anytime I have to work with OAuth stuff, I hate everything going on. And as we've been building this out and adding platforms, like, you start with one, and you don't want to over abstract. So like I had like this single table in our database that was like, okay, here's the platform that's associated with this user, and their social media account, and record like the platform type with it. And then I figured, okay, OAuth has to do, like, everyone does it the same, right? So you're going to have like an access token. This is the thing that you're always authenticating with. You're going to have bearer tokens. You're going to have refresh tokens. You're going to have expiration dates. So like, we need to be able to refresh to make sure that we can continue using access tokens on the user's behalf. Or else the way that this would work is like, anytime they want to post, they'd have to log in. So if you're not following exactly what I'm saying, that's the reason why we need to do this, is so that we can post on the user's behalf from a server, because they're not going to be posting directly from their browser. So if we assume that because it's OAuth, you need an access token, a refresh token, an access token expiry date, and a refresh token expiry date, these are like 4 pieces of information that make sense that everyone doing OAuth should have. So I designed the schema for that. The reality is, no one does that. There's some that do, but it's not consistent. And this is very problematic when you're trying to have like, I don't know, like shared resources and commonality and stuff. So I started to realize as we were adding more, I'm like, okay, like, you know, for this platform, this column's going to be null because it's never used. For this other platform, this other column's going to be null. And then I just started to realize there was literally no consistency at all. And then I said, okay, I'm going to go the complete opposite direction. And it's going to create a little bit more work, but I'm going to basically force every plugin is going to record authentication requirements in their own way. So the shared table is still used, but it's not used to the same degree. Now, the shared table is still required because it is at a high level. It's at a high level, like sort of agnostic to the social media platforms. And then anything that's specific to the social media platforms goes in that platform-specific table. So far that pattern's working really well, and it means that we can, like, I can make schema changes and not break like all of the authentication or something. Like if I have to work and play around with Twitter, I don't have to worry that's going to break Facebook or something like that. It's kind of like reducing the surface area for the other plugins, which is cool. It's been helpful. Now, what's not helpful is that as we start to design these things in code and we think about our design patterns that we're using, like repository patterns, unit of work, things like that, the way that I started doing this is that I had authentication with respect to, I have a user and I want to know a social account for them. I don't need the details about it. I just need to like refer to it, like use the identifier with it. That could all be done from that shared table that I've been referring to. So that's cool. And I have an API to work with that. And it's sort of in this common spot because it's platform agnostic. It's kind of convenient. It's nice. The problem is that when we want to go add social media authentication specific to a platform, I have to do it across two tables. And it's not like there's a million different ways to do this. So if you're listening to this and you're familiar with like, you know, you can conceptualize and you're like, oh, here's how I would do it. Like your way is probably right. My way is probably right. I don't think there's like a wrong way to do this. I'm sure there are wrong ways to do this, but what I'm trying to say is that there are probably many right ways and okay ways to do this. Everything has trade-offs. So my goal with talking through this is not to have someone comment and be like, oh, this is clearly wrong, here's what you do. I don't like, there's no absolutes here. I just want to talk about where there's friction and ways around that. So the issue that I'm facing right now is that I've kind of delegated responsibilities across different boundaries of the application. So there's a spot that's responsible for writing that, for that like shared table. Okay, so that gets done. And then following that, if that succeeds, which, I mean, unless the connection to the database is not there, it will work. And if that succeeds, then we'll go write the platform specific information to a table. Now, that's great, all fine and dandy, but even with our limited usage, there have been situations where you wouldn't think there's a problem doing those two things, but we end up writing the first record, and then for some reason, we're unable to write the second record. So what happens now is that someone is in a almost like what should be an impossible state. They have a record in the shared table, and they don't have the platform-specific information written. And that means when they try to go use their account, like we can see it, but we can't do anything with it. And there's no way to really communicate this to the user effectively because it shouldn't happen. Like it's a state that should not exist in our data. So it seemed like an impossible edge case, and I wanted to talk about it because it's funny that, yeah, like because it's possible, that's exactly why it's happening. So this morning I was working through part of this, and I have basically, like I was explaining, if I'm adding a specific, like authentication for a specific platform, I have to make two calls to write to the database, one for the shared table, one for this platform specific table. So two calls. And if we think about this per plugin, every plugin has to go, okay, write the shared table, now write my specific table. And that's a pattern that we see across all of our plugins. It's like almost the exact same code. And I was thinking, okay, like the way that I want to solve this is with a transaction, because if something goes wrong at all, I roll back the transaction, and that means the write to the first table will get undone, right? So this way I can have any type of issue. I don't want to, but any type of issue can happen, and then I'm safe and not leaving users in this weird hybrid state where the first table that's shared is written to, and then something goes wrong, and then they're stuck with that like record permanently existing there. The user would have to know to remove the account from the user interface and then go re-add it. But they might not. They might try to refresh the account because they're like, hey, it's not working, let me refresh it. It's permanently broken though, even if they try to refresh it. So I needed to like think of a way to kind of invert this, because I need to write to the first table first, because part of that process is that it's going to provide me with an identifier. So the act of doing that, that part of the workflow says this is what we're going to use for an identifier here. So that will create one, assign one, and then we have it to use, which means it has to happen first. I can't do the platform specific table first, because it needs to have that reference, like what is my identifier? What's the shared thing that we're using here? So I need to do the shared table first. That's fine. But how do I, like, and I could put, the way the code was structured, I could easily make it so that the shared table had a transaction with it. And what I was doing was basically saying, like, we can use a transaction on the shared table, but I needed to, like, this is going to sound really weird, I need to, like, sandwich the call to insert the records to the other table within that, because I need the commit of the transaction to be after both tables are written to. So this isn't that hard to do. I just made it so that there's a callback. So when we say, hey, I would like to insert, so calling the workflow to insert into the shared table, that's the first part, I say, before we finish that, here's a callback, and someone can use that callback to basically say, hey, I'm going to go write my platform-specific data. And this means that in the order of execution, we end up inserting to the shared table, then we call the callback, which can go insert to its own table, and then before we leave that entire thing, then I can say, okay, go commit that transaction. And if it failed along the way, I can use like error handling to say, roll back that transaction. Great. Now, the thing that was really bothering me about this, because this conceptually works, the code is easy to structure that way, it's very easy to refactor it to that. It's kind of like pass a callback instead of calling it and using the result. So pretty simple. Again, it's really hard to explain it without actually having code or a picture. Mustang's trying to race me. So the problem that I didn't like is that the way that the interfaces looked and like how the code boundaries worked, exposing the transaction, like the level that we're operating at, we shouldn't know that there's a transaction coming from the original spot. And I was like battling with this morning, and I'm like, man, like this feels like I shouldn't be able to know, like it doesn't seem right. But I couldn't put my finger on it. It was like, this seems like it's an implementation detail of that workflow. Like I shouldn't need to know that. But then I was thinking, you know what? Like I know that if I expose the transaction, that I can literally do exactly what I need across all 13 plugins that we have. And this was like the battle that I was having with myself, was like, it seems like it's not right, but at the same time, I have 13 different use cases because of the plugin architecture. I'm like 13 different use cases where it fits every single one of them totally fine. So I want, like, it's funny to me because part of me is battling like, oh, this seems like it's not a good design. It's like goes against like maybe common things that I might be thinking of. And then the reality is like I have 13 pieces of evidence that say completely otherwise. So like, what should I listen to? And for me, the answer is obvious. It's like, do the thing that's going to work. You have 13 pieces of evidence. Because otherwise it's kind of silly. You're just like, you're almost like being dogmatic about it. Like, hey, this isn't right because we read about it on the internet. And I'm like, you know what? Like, these aren't plugins for other people to interact with. They're internal use. So this is the boundary in the API that I need. And 13 places say that it works good. we're doing it. So that was like what happened this morning, basically, was that I was finishing up the refactor, and then I realized, like, I really think that I need to expose that transaction. So I spent some time doing that in particular. But I hope that was kind of like a helpful conversation. I realize it might be weird to visualize it and how it all works, but the whole idea was that like different design patterns that you might have, like having examples of how they're used can be really helpful, because if you only have one or two and you try to refactor to make common things, like it might not be enough, right? There's a thing called the rule of three. I think that's what it's called. And you know, before you start refactoring things to extract common code, you probably want to see at least 3 examples of it. And for me, I've been evolving this over time. Like, I've had over 3 examples for a long time, and this isn't the first iteration of what this pattern has looked like. It's actually probably closer to iteration 5 or 6 by now. And now I have 13 examples, not 3. So it's really like, I don't know, like using the evidence that's in front of you. And I think what could be interesting is, like, in the future, if I'm refactoring other code, like it's not microservice based. Maybe that becomes an issue if we ever want to go microservice for that part of the application. But like, I just don't foresee that being the case. And if it is, I think that's an awesome problem to have, because it means our application survived long enough that we needed microservices, and we have the scale where we need microservices. We don't have the scale. We don't have the requirement for it. So I'm just trying to reduce coupling as much as possible. And in this case, the coupling that I decided to introduce was knowledge that we are working with a database connection. So we are coupled to the same database connection. And I shouldn't even say that we're not forcibly coupled to it. You're optionally coupled to it. That's what my API introduces. And for me, I was like, I think that's a totally fine trade-off to make here. But it took me a lot of reasoning this morning to try and say, like, am I okay with that? Okay, this is the fun part of the highway we do every morning. It's backed up significantly earlier. So I need to go from the left lanes that are the fast lanes over 3 lanes. Oh, it's picking up again. That's good. I don't know if you saw that silver Mustang that just went past me, but he's been driving really weird, trying to like get my attention. People are funny. I'm not going to race your silly Mustang in traffic. No, thank you. Okay, we should be able to do this pretty easily. Cool, that's 1 lane now. There's a bunch of trucks and stuff. Two lanes. Oh man, this guy's gonna crash. What a dummy. It's a personal favorite when people put on their signal and they use the signal to say, look out, I'm coming, not like, hello, I would like to be let in. I joke with my wife about this because she's very much I use the signal to say, look out, the car is on the way, and not, please let me in. So I try to let her know, like, that's not the point of this signal. You want to let people know what your intention is, not, it's too bad my car is already going to be there. But that's what just happened in front of me, so I still got to move over 1 lane, but we should be fine. So yeah, right now I got that code in BrandGhost. I'm kind of at the point now where I got to like I need to test it, and I need to like try it, like, this is a weird thing to say, like local prod, I guess. Like I don't have a test instance of our database and schema and everything set up. Probably should get around to that, but I've been fortunate enough that I can, like, for however long I've been building this now, I've been able to kind of test locally running a server and then pointing at the production database. That's been fine. So what I'll probably do is use one of my social media accounts that I don't, like Tumblr, for example. We support Tumblr, and Tumblr's not a huge platform for us. Obviously, it's like a little bit, I don't know, it's not like Facebook, it's not like Instagram, it's not like LinkedIn. And I think if I use that, then I'll feel pretty safe. That way, if it messes up, then it's easy enough for me to reconstruct. If I lost like my LinkedIn integration or something and that was busted for a day, then I would feel like pretty crappy about that. But Tumblr is fine. So I'll do that. The other thing, and I just remembered this now, but before I left for work, I was like, okay, I'm going to start integrating Reddit, and I was like, maybe I'll just build on top of that branch and kind of like make Reddit work and use that as the proving ground, because nothing that I have right now through BrandGhost is posting to Reddit because the integration doesn't exist. So I was trying to switch lanes the same time someone in front of me was deciding they were going to move over much slower, so 2 lanes it is. So I'm going to finish Reddit integration, I think, which will be exciting. I have different thoughts about Reddit integration. I think the safe thing to do, it might not be what people want, and we have to kind of survey for this, I think, but the safe thing to do is Reddit integration should post to your personal like profile, which is its own subreddit. And I think that's the safe thing to do because you can kind of post whatever you want there. What I don't want to have happen is like, if people are going to go, for example, for software developers, like, oh, well, there's the subreddit for programming, there's a subreddit for software engineering, there's a whatever, subreddits for everything. And then they go, cool, I'm going to hook up all of my social media posting to basically be blasting subreddits. I don't want that, even though someone might say, well, that's the best way that I'm going to get my content seen. Like, that's nice, but I really want to limit that. So if we are going to post to other subreddits, I want to be very careful that, like, I don't know how it's going to work if posts are going up and people are downvoting them and stuff because the creators using our platform are like spamming Reddit. I don't want our app's reputation to drop. Like, I'm very nervous about that. And then like we'd lose like Reddit integration or something. Like I don't want a couple of bad apples to ruin it for everyone, I guess. So we're trying to look at things to help with that. So I think initially I'll code it so that you can post to any subreddit, and then the way that we'll actually enable the feature is that it will be restricted. And then what I might do is, I haven't hooked this stuff up yet, but we need to have like, it's kind of a weird thing to explain, almost like a listener concept. Like you can listen to an RSS feed. I wanted to say RRS, but RSS feed. And if there's new entries there, then we can go automatically create content for you, that kind of thing. I think I'd like to try doing that with my newsletter. So build that kind of functionality to listen to Substack, say, oh, new newsletter is posted, let me go create a content entry for it. And then the new content entry will be in your topic stream. And then that topic stream we can post to Reddit. And I might experiment with my own that, like, by default, if there's certain like hashtags or categories and stuff included, that it will then go post to a subreddit that's not that's not just my personal profile. So I might trial that and see what it looks like. But I'm going to start with just doing the user profiles in terms of what other users can access, because I think that's just the safest thing to do. So those are a couple things. What else? On the development side, we were using, I don't know, like we were using this tool called Bubble for our website, and it's a website builder. Seemed to be super easy, and I'm not the one doing the actual like front end website, and I'm not talking about the front end app. I just mean the website for like the landing page and stuff. And I thought it looked pretty good. Did everything we needed, but we had these weird quirks, and I had other people telling me this, or like, your website's down. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And then I go to visit, and I'm like, it's absolutely there. But I realized that it must be some type of CDN situation where, and if you use Bubble and you're watching this, like, please let me know, because we did a little bit of research and saw other people running into this. Sometimes it would take minutes, literal minutes, to load the website. And then the next time you refresh, it's instant. Like, it's lightning fast. But the first time it was like literal minutes, to the extreme situation where people just thought the website was down. They're like, it doesn't exist, like, what's going on? And I observed it multiple times. So I'm assuming it's some type of caching or CDN thing where, like, you make updates to the site, they have to push to all these different regions. I'm guessing, right? I'm speculating. That's what it seems like. And that's why once you get it and you refresh, it's instant, because cache and or CDN. So we were trying to get our, was Facebook? Yeah, we're trying to get Facebook approved so that we can do comments. And they rejected us, and they were like, they're so dumb. I can't stand Meta's app approval process. It's completely insane. It needs to be redesigned. It's horrific. So out of nowhere, they're like, oh, we're just going to go check your privacy policy. And they're like, your privacy policy doesn't work. And we're like, obviously it does. We haven't touched our privacy policy, but it's this Bubble issue. So they won't approve our app because the website's not loading our privacy policy. Likely because of some CDN crap. So, where's a good spot? Okay. So we're moving. I think we're just going to go over to Webflow. Sucks because it's just like extra work, but I think it's going to be way better. We've had success with Webflow in the past. I think the websites always look cool in Webflow. Like, they're the kind of website that catch my eye. I'm not the best person to ask about this stuff. I should adjust this parking job. But we're going to move over to that. So we're hopefully by the end of today, the guy that's working on that will have it done. And then we're going to be blasting out to a big newsletter, and we'll see if we get some traction with that. So we are pretty excited. But I'm at the office. I hope that was eventful, and I will do this on the way home. So take care.